and I saw this oud in Safat when we visited, I think in the 80s sometime, maybe 1988 or so. We went into the shop, and he said he made them there, made them right in this in the shop in the back room, and he showed me everything, how he did it, how he made the shape and this and that. So I bought it. So I bought this in 2019 in Safat, and I saw this picture of a guy playing an oud, and I said, that looks just like the person I bought my oud from. And he said, the guy in the shop says, that's me. And this is like over 30 years later, I don't know.
מסקרן.
כן. את ניל ובטי-לו לואן פגשנו באחד מימי ראשון כאן בעצרת ברחבת הגלריה לאומנות בוונקובר. הם באו והם נשאו איתם שלט של נוצרים למען ישראל, וכשהתחלנו לשאול אותם ככה שאלות ומה הקשר שלהם, התברר שיש להם בעצם קשר מאוד עמוק לישראל, ולא רק לישראל, לקיבוצים בדרום, ויש להם היכרות מאוד גדולה ורבת שנים עם הקיבוצים בדרום, והם ביקרו בישראל לפחות 9 פעמים.
יותר מאיתנו בזמן האחרון. אז ביקשנו מהם לשמוע עוד, והם פתחו את הבית וסיפרו לנו על המפגש הראשון עם הישראלים, ועל הביקור שלהם בקיבוצי הדרום, וכמובן שאלנו איך נודע להם על 7 באוקטובר, ומה הם עושים מאז. בואו נשמע.
So hello Beti-lo and Neil. It's nice to meet you. I've met you at the vigil for Israelis hostages to bring them home.
Yes.
You were there, and then I was really curious to find out. We had like a quick chat, but then we figure out we have to talk to you. So
nice.
I want to ask you first, where is your connection with Israel started?
So many years ago, when we were just in our young 20s.
Yes.
We found ourselves in Munich in 1972 in September for the Olympics, and
Which was the Olympic with the terror attack.
That's
on
right.
The
So,
Israeli athletes.
Yeah, so we had been kind of involved with a Christian group and handing out Bibles to people in different languages. It was something that they were doing, and we met people from all over the world, and so. It was a very, very shocking thing to have happened in Munich, and the German people in Munich, they were very upset because it had ruined kind of what they had hoped to kind of show the world a new Germany, kind of, you know. And so it was a very shocking for everybody, but it introduced us. I always say it was the event that introduced us to Middle East terrorism and Israel and the difficulties of it. So that's kind of where I would say it began, and we had a growing awareness of Israel, except we had never been to Israel in 1972. But
In fact, I didn't even know any Jewish people before we went to Europe.
Okay.
So we'd had this, year-long event of studying the Bible in Switzerland and going with a group touring around, and there were some Jewish people that we met, and it was like the lights began to go on for us.
So we began to start having a feeling for Israel, and then in the spring we went on this overland tour of the different countries that were connected to the Bible stories. And in Israel, we were camped for 1 week in Galilee at Ginnasar, Kibbutz Ginnasar.
Beautiful.
And then we were another week in the old city of Jerusalem in some kind of a hostel that we stayed at.
Nice.
But it was quite amazing. So when we came back to Canada, it was in the end of 1973. And so in 74, we were back at like our usual life. I was working again. but I had wanted to learn Hebrew, so I learned the alphabet on my own, but then I found an ad for conversational Hebrew in Vancouver. So we signed up for that with, and I don't know if you know Devorah Balshin.
Yeah, of course I know her.
Okay, well, she was our first Hebrew teacher.
Yeah.
But I learned a lot of songs, and sometimes I would just sing along, and I didn't know what I was singing, but I just loved the music. And then I discovered Israeli folk dancing at the JCC.
Yes.
And so I would go into Vancouver and do that for many, many years and made a lot of friends there.
So how did you connect it to the International Christian Embassy in Jerusalem?
Well, they started up in 1980, and it was at that time there was an oil embargo, and many of the countries who had embassies in Jerusalem at that time, they pulled them out. And so there was a group of Christians and several Canadians who decided that they wanted to show Israel and the world that there were Christians that supported Israel. So that
There
was
were two of them.
Cross-country
yeah.
religion. So
Yeah, so that was one of how it got started during that time.
And then one time they unveiled this banner and they said, we have a vision to start an embassy for Christians so that our voice can be heard. And so like this was their inspiration, and to celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles. And so that became the focus.
Oh.
And I remember him sitting in that sukkah saying, there is something about this. I go, what do you mean? He says, well, like there's a presence, God is here. It took him by surprise that there was something spiritual about this little
something
sukkah.
special.
Yeah. When we were talking about what's going on in the south, you said we actually had a project helping the kibbutzim in the south of Israel. So tell me about that.
Well, ICEJ has about 80 different projects going in Israel, a home for Holocaust survivors that they contribute toward, helping all kinds of different communities, a school for deaf kids, and I can't even remember all of the things, but we've got brochures about it. But the one that was more recent was to supply bomb shelters to areas that need it in case of war, and we were always hoping they wouldn't need them, but we went, the last two times we went with ICEJ and did a tour with them, and they took groups of people to the places where they would install the bomb shelters. And Rabbi Bowman was with us, and he would always explain to the local community that was there. They would put on a little entertainment for us of singing and food.
Well,
and
at Rosh Pina they did that. Yeah,
Rosh Pina. And then we had a little party, and this was the inauguration of a bomb shelter near a children's daycare.
Daycare, yeah.
Yeah, they needed one. And so that was one time, and then another time the group went down to the south, and we got to see many of the kibbutzim near the border of Gaza.
Yeah, we went to Ofakim, where we had donated a bomb shelter, I think 2 bomb shelters side by side, at a tennis center, and there had not been anything there. And then after that, we went to Alamim, and also to Saad, Kibbutz Saad, which was where we had a meal there. And after that, we went and we met Rafi Babian, who's the head of security for the Sadot Negev area. I guess all the farms or whatever. And so he met us, and he was driving an ATV, kind of, you know what that is, an all-terrain vehicle, a small one. And ICEJ had donated a whole lot of them to the kibbutzim to fight the fires. We went out and saw the fields half a mile from the Gaza border, and they were black.
So how did you find out about the October 7? How did you heard about that?
It was through emails, and
Straight from Israel.
So the leader, an email from the head of our organization, Jürgen Buehler. He wrote an email which, according to the time stamp on it, came at about 2:18 a.m. October the 7th, our time, because they're ahead. So So he must have
10 hours earlier.
it's like whatever it was in Israel. So as soon as they found out about it, he sent this out, and he sent it to all of the Christian leaders that are on his email list around the world. And there's how many countries? 94 countries where we have offices. So internationally, this news went out to many different people, and from there it probably...
But of course we didn't see it in the middle of the night.
No, I didn't see it at that time. I saw it in the morning that this had happened, and then right after that, the organization in Canada was reporting on the Canadian members who were still in Jerusalem at that time, and whether they were getting out or not. So we heard some news.
They were on a tour down there, even right to the border of Gaza.
They had been there 2 days before, and they visited all of those kibbutzim. They had kind of a meeting further down. There's a memorial down there, I think, an Anzac Memorial, which is like further south. And then they went to Sederot.
Like our friend from here, who is the assistant director for Canada, ICEJ, he was leading the tour down there.
Wow, so he was there at the time.
He met him, he had said, wow, we had a great talk with him. Like he'd published something already about their interaction with him, and he was devastated.
He was on the TV like a few hours before, before he died. Like
really?
It was an interview with the TV,
Really awful. And so the group, some of them had left already, some were about to leave. The Canadian group, most of them got on the very last plane out. And this friend of ours who's leading the tour, Adam Gabelli, he and his wife were going to stay for a few more days, and they got stuck in their hotel. But there was a Fijian delegation who had come to the Feast of Tabernacles with their own plane from Fiji Airlines, and political leader from Fiji, and this whole big group was in the same hotel. So he said, can I get a ride with you? And so he got on the plane and went to Fiji, and then they had to work their way back home from there.
Fiji Airlines doesn't usually fly to Israel, but they made an exception. The government made an exception to allow it to come in the first place, and then they were able to take it back.
Their plane could leave.
So I want to ask you, what do you think about what's going on here in Canadian cities now, months after?
It's appalling. What happened was terrible, but not that surprising, because we know what Hamas is like. But to see real Canadian people doing this, shouting for intifada, for death to Israel, Canadians who've been here their whole life, who know better, something has flipped in their minds, that they have believed these lies, and that they're wanting to punish Israel because they think that they are a colonial power. So an awful lot of brainwashing has happened in the universities, and those people have graduated now, and they're teachers now, and it's sifting down right to the young population. And so we've got too many of the young people who bought into that. Well, most of the older Canadians know better, but they're quiet, and they don't want to make a fuss, and they don't want to go out and encounter some crazy wild demonstrators. We don't like that kind of thing. So it's been a challenge. We love to go to the pro-Israel rallies and things like that. It's not scary. The police are there, and they do a good job, and I would wish all Christians who love Israel would go to those and show up. We do with our signs so that they know who we are. But we also did this to we went to a rally in Abbotsford, a small one.
Protest.
A protest against...
A pro-Palestinian protest. We came there with our signs.
And how that?
Did it go?
Maybe about 40, 50 people. Some Muslims that have recently moved here into Abbotsford, and some Mennonite Christians who should know better, but MCC, Mennonite Central Committee, is very anti-Israel, and we have encountered this a long time here. We have stood up against their anti-Semitic, anti-Israel events at the university here. So there's a lot of people from the university and from MCC that are against Israel in principle, although they would say they're not anti-Semitic. They're trying to make a distinction.
But how was the rally there for you? How did you feel there?
Well,
Like, did they tell you something? Did they talk to
they
you?
shouted at us to go away.
yeah, they did not appreciate my disruption.
I have to tell you that when I'm in your house, I feel that you are more Jewish than me. Like,
I've heard that
I
a bit,
never
a few
had,
times.
we never had, even in my parents' house, so many Jewish and Israeli.
Well, we collect over 40 years. We've collected, and honestly, some of it we bought from Value Village as well when we see them. But we also belong to Lev-Ha-Olam, which is the group in Israel that sells products from home-based business products. They sell them overseas, and you get one package a month for $100 US. And in it is all kinds of wonderful surprises.
Yeah.
So a lot of things we got from them. It's pottery, it's food, dates from Israel, honey, oil, candy, chocolate, great chocolate, and religious things for the holidays. That's my little Passover matzah holder. And I have like so many things.
So thank you very much, Bטי-לו. Neil,
pleasure.
thank you very much. תודה רבה. It was a pleasure.
תודה רבה.
Yes, love to meet you.
טוב, הבית שלהם נראה כמו מוזיאון יודאיקה, ואני מרגיש כאילו שהם, אם הייתי נכנס לבית בלי לדעת מי הם, לא הייתי יודע שהם לא יהודים.
מאוד מעניין היה לשמוע מהם איך מאז האולימפיאדה במינכן פשוט הם עוברים ציוני דרך ביחד עם מדינת ישראל ולא עוזבים ולא מתערערים באהבה שלהם לישראל וליהודים. זה סוג של מצרך נחוץ בימים האלה.
אז אנחנו נמשיך להסתובב ולחפש אנשים מעניינים. כאן היינו באולימפיאדת. ביי לימור.
ביי שי, תודה. להתראות, לייק וסאבסקרייב. ושאר.